This man keeps finding priceless treasures from the White House right here in Tampa Bay in places you wouldn't expect.
I mean, it was just kind of shock.
These actors are reeling because Florida is losing big business from show business, and they blame our state lawmakers.
It's actually heartbreaking. It truly is.
We'll also sort out the confusion over Obamacare and show why the former Republican House Speaker said they won't really replace it.
Why not just replace Obamacare with the Affordable Care Act?
That's a great question.
This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Well, this week, the president gave the speech of his life to Congress. The stock market took off. Then another distraction knocked him off message. And so Trump's attorney general got caught up in controversy once again over Russia. We'll key into Jeff Sessions here in just a few minutes, but we're going to start with the president. Obamacare. President Trump's plan to replace it.
So I am calling on all Democrats and Republicans in Congress to work with us to save Americans from this imploding Obamacare disaster.
Okay, time out to bring in our Fox 13 pollster, Matt Towery. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
To what extent can the controversy over Jeff Sessions impact, delay, or pull focus from the effort to repeal Obamacare?
Well, it has an effect because it's cumulative. This issue of Russia just continues to sort of haunt the early phase of the Trump administration. And every time they think they've extricated themselves from it, with a great speech by most accounts. I mean, a speech that went over very well, even from networks that aren't very friendly to Donald Trump earlier in the week. You then have the Jeff Sessions situation put them right back in the center of a Trump-Russia alleged nexus, and I don't think that's going away. What effect that has on Obamacare? It takes attention off of moving the ball forward. As you know, the legislative process goes very slowly in Washington. It's not a fun thing to watch, and it takes time. And Donald Trump may grow very weary of how slow it moves.
And you have former Republican House Speaker John Boehner recently saying they're not really going to repeal Obamacare after all this, maybe fix it along the edges, and say they did. Is he right?
Well, you know, John Boehner is probably would have been a better commentator than he ever was speaker because he does call things like he sees it. I would say this. I think that there's a concern on the part of some of the more conservative members of the House, particularly of their Freedom Caucus, which are the most conservative members, that in fact what you're going to see is Obamacare light, and they're not going to accept that. I don't know that that's the case yet. I don't think there's any way the Republicans can eliminate Obamacare without having a replacement, because there'll be just too many people who are affected whose votes they need in the upcoming elections that will take place 2 years from now. So I don't think you'll see it go away. In that sense, Boehner is right. I do think you'll see a major change in it, though, because Tom Price, who I've known for many years, he is very devoted to making a major change in this, and he's going to be running that show for the White House.
Fox 13 pollster Matt Towery, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
And so Democrats took heat for years for passing Obamacare, and now Republicans are taking heat for planning to scrap it. So both sides must feel a little frustrated and confused about a law that is confusing in itself. That's tonight's We the People.
Obamacare has failed.
Maybe it failed because it confused even the Democrats who passed it.
I think it's very confusing.
Maybe it failed because Democrats tried to sell it with a man-child in onesie pajamas, while Republicans countered with a sloppy fat man with his pants undone.
And I'm Obamacare.
Maybe it failed because it made people buy health care, which Senator Obama ran against.
If a mandate was the solution, we could try that to solve homelessness by mandating everybody buy a house.
And maybe it failed because Obama failed to explain it to the people it was designed to help, like Gregory Peacock, who runs a small lawn business.
If I get Obamacare, I can't pay for it.
He did not know the government could have helped him pay for it.
And if the government subsidized me,
Then that would be good.
That would be good.
You'd go for Obamacare in that case.
In that case, I would.
Now meet Raul Rivera.
So go back to the way it was before Obamacare.
Yep, it should be the way it was before.
And what was better about that?
Almost everything.
He said he never even tried to get Obamacare.
Because a lot of people talking about they can't get it, so I figure I can't get it either, so that's why I ain't try.
So you heard other people say they can't get it, so you assume that you can't get it either.
Yes, sir.
But as we explained it, he discovered he may have qualified for health care for years.
Wow, that'd be good to me.
Oh, that'd be good?
Yeah.
And remember how Congress called it the Affordable Care Act, then Republicans mockingly called it Obamacare, and it stuck because Obama called it that too?
Before we passed Obamacare.
By the way, it's called the Affordable Care Act.
Well, that just caused more confusion that exists to this day.
We get rid of Obamacare.
Okay.
And then we replace it with the Affordable Care Act.
I'm for that.
That's what I believe would be the best thing about the Affordable Care Act.
As opposed to Obamacare, in which
fluctuates.
It fluctuates. The Affordable Care Act is constant, but Obamacare swings around a lot.
Exactly.
It's complicated and politicized, and the federal lawmakers all know it.
Why not just replace Obamacare with the Affordable Care Act?
That's a great question. A lot of people are confused and don't know that they're one and the same.
Which brings us to Kim Furman.
I think anything is better than Obamacare, truthfully.
She says the government should chip in to help people buy health care, which, ironically, is the core of Obamacare.
Like if they did it based on your income, like you only make this much, so you can only afford to pay this much.
Yeah.
I think that would help too.
As opposed to Obamacare.
Yes.
What if we let adult children stay on their parents' plans until they have an opportunity to get coverage themselves?
That would be good too, because that's my son's problem.
And so goes a problem with Obamacare and a challenge for President Trump in selling a replacement.
Now, I have to tell you, it's an unbelievably complex subject. Nobody knew that health care could be so complicated.
Save Obamacare inspired this national movement called Indivisible that's driving a lot of the protests. And so we wanted to find out who's behind this specifically. Merissa caught up with co-founder of Indivisible Tampa.
Across America, town halls are getting more and more attention these days. It isn't about the discussion, it's about the movement. Liberals are coming together to fight the agenda of Donald Trump and the Republicans.
We encourage people to be passionate, we encourage people to be persistent, but we also encourage people to be civil and polite.
Some lawmakers don't see it that way, including Senator Marco Rubio. Here's how he explained it on Miami's CBS 4 facing South Florida.
The problem is they're not designed to have a productive engagement. They're designed to basically heckle and scream at me in front of cameras.
His comments indicate that he has an impression that the purpose of the movement is to shame him, it's to embarrass him. That's not our intention at all.
In early February, Rubio learned he had to close his Tampa office. Protesters were to blame. He's also been chased down by members of the movement after refusing to attend town hall meetings.
We need to hear from you, Senator.
They ask questions. They all cheer when the questions are asked. They're instructed to boo no matter what answer I give. They're instructed to interrupt me if I go too long and start chanting things. Then at the end, they're also told not to give up their microphone when they ask questions. It's all in writing.
Rubio is talking about this guide put together by former congressional staffers. It lists 5 things the Indivisibles should do while at town hall meetings. For example, get seated and spread out. Another reads, don't give up the mic until you're satisfied with the answer.
Is really, to our understanding of it, based on their experiences kind of dealing with constituent organized groups, particularly during the Tea Party movement. And they observed actions that this movement used with great effect. And the idea is to model some of those actions, to use some of those actions that proved effective in order to engage members of Congress.
It says it's a practical guide for resisting the Trump agenda. I asked Broach if it really is. Is that what you guys are going for?
That's the goal. I mean, the goal is to substantively affect policy decisions moving forward.
That's just not how Rubio sees it.
So it's all designed to be able to have news coverage at night that says, look at all these angry people screaming at your senator.
We would prefer if we didn't have to be out on the streets on Tuesday or outside of his office on Tuesdays protesting. We would prefer the opportunity to kind of meet civilly and discuss our concerns.
And those discussions are heating up across Tampa Bay. For Money, Power, and Politics, I'm Merissa Lynn.
All right, coming up, you're not going to believe what turned up in a home in Dade City. We found President Jimmy Carter's family photo albums from more than 40 years ago. Some of the pictures are pretty interesting, and the former president wants them back. And so I met a man with a knack for striking gold. His name is Danny Triplett. When I first met him back in 2015, he discovered a collection of rare pictures and documents from the Kennedy White House. He just called me back to say that he found something else.
2 years ago, we discovered a gold mine, priceless, one-of-a-kind photos of President John F. Kennedy, tucked away in a small house in South Tampa.
When I opened that big box and started looking at what I found, I was like in amazement. I mean, I really did get the chills. I mean, I was just like, wow.
See, Danny Triplett manages estate sales, and a family from Pennsylvania asked him to check out some boxes that belonged to their departed aunt, who had very close access to the White House, or Camelot, as it was known back then.
And then I opened the envelope and saw these pictures, and I was just like, wow, 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 what do I do, you know?
Danny thought that was the find of a lifetime, until now, when he discovered another gold mine in this house in Dade City.
When I saw one of the pictures, I said, that sure looks like Jimmy Carter.
He found albums full of a young man with a striking grin, hanging out in the same rooms Danny had just dismantled for his estate sale.
There you can see like the gold plates on the wall. I believe we did sell those. They were still there.
The house belonged to a lady named Martha, who kept the family photo albums of her best friend Fanny, who was Jimmy Carter's aunt. And so Danny Triplett did it again.
It was just kind of shock that I was actually looking at family photographs of President Carter.
To be more exact, he was Governor Carter when most of these pictures were taken. This is Carter taking advice from his uncle Tom Gordy. We know that because the handwritten note in the back reads, "You can tell the governor is listening to advice given by his uncle." The albums are filled with pictures of Carter, his wife Rosalind, his mother Lillian, his whole family, from their time in Dade City and Plains, Georgia, to their campaign headquarters, to the inauguration in Washington.
Different pictures, again, they're kind of loose and falling out.
Danny also found original notes from the Carter-Mondale campaign and family letters.
That when Jimmy kissed her after being sworn in, she could feel the bulletproof vest he wore when she hugged him.
So Danny knew he shouldn't sell this, so he called and offered it to the Jimmy Carter Center. And guess what happened next?
Sure enough, within an hour or so later, his press secretary contacted me back and said he had invited me to come to his home in Georgia to sit down with him and go through all of these. And so I'm
to his home?
To his home, yes.
And so Danny is spending this weekend with Jimmy and Rosalind Carter as their house guests to thank them for finding the family albums they thought were lost in time.
All right, now coming up, Congressman Charlie Crist joins us one-on-one with his call for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to quit. And we'll explain why Florida's film industry is shrinking, what it's costing us, where we go from here. Congressman Charlie Crist is trying to save Obamacare. He strongly criticized it a few years ago, but he said his perspective changed as he learned more about it. So he hosted his first town hall meeting this weekend. By the way, he also turned up the heat on Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Well, please welcome Congressman and former Governor Charlie Crist. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Craig, great to be with you. Thank you for having me today.
Yes or no? Do you think Attorney General Sessions committed perjury when he told Senator Franken that he did not communicate with Russian officials?
Certainly looks like it to me. This is not a complicated question. When the Attorney General of the United States swears under oath to tell the truth and then lies about his involvement with the Russians, not just the Russians, the ambassador of Russia, as I understand it, that's inexcusable. He ought to resign immediately. It is the right thing to do.
Congressman, in your brief time in Washington, you are now going through a divorce, and that's something personal, something I normally wouldn't ask about. But in your case, your spouse was also your political advisor, your political director. So what does this change in terms of politics? Who will fill that role for you, and what do you need?
It changes nothing. I lead with my soul, I lead with my heart, and I try to do what's right for the people of the 13th Congressional District. Craig, the same way as I did as governor of the state of Florida, or Attorney General of Florida, or Commissioner of Education of Florida, or a state senator for Tampa Bay. I mean, the thing is to fight for Social Security, to fight for our seniors, to fight for our veterans, to look out for our environment, to do what's right for education in our schools, and make sure that we have a great place to live, work, and play. And we do. And we need to keep it clean, protect our environment, and that's exactly what I'm going to keep focused on. You're also doing what's right.
Well, you're also focused on trying to save Obamacare. If you were leading the push, though, to reform, to change it, what specifically would you change, and how would you do it?
Well, I like the Affordable Care Act. I think that we need to keep it in place. I think that we need to fix it, not end it. I think we need to try to find ways to lower the cost, frankly, and I think that's the right approach. Repealing it is wrong.
Congressman Crist, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Craig. Great to be with you.
Okay, please watch our YouTube channel for extended interviews with the lawmakers. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe. You'll also find our investigations of money and politics.
And that brings us to tonight's Spotlight. in what state lawmakers are doing or not doing for our film industry. Florida stopped offering tax incentives for shooting movies and commercials here a while back. So productions are heading north to Georgia and to other states. So Merissa Lynn shows us who's paying for that here in Tampa Bay.
And you want to talk to me about what's fair?
They have taken our jobs away, and we are very, very pissed off.
I'm your friend.
Local actors and producers say Florida's film industry is dying.
Most of my resume, if you asked for film and television, out of everything that I've done, only one thing was done in Florida, and that was Dolphin Tale 2.
I've only been acting for 4.5 years, so I'm in the infancy of my career, and it's getting a little difficult to build a resume.
It's actually heartbreaking. It truly is.
It hasn't always been this way.
I'm giving you 30 days to correct the problem.
Dolphin Tale, Moonlight, and other Florida productions became Hollywood hits. Filmmakers cashed in on almost $300 million in tax credits. Then the money dried up when lawmakers halted the incentive program last year. Filmmakers went elsewhere, so did the jobs.
People who want to do productions will go to where they can actually receive some help, and that's not here.
Part of Ben Affleck's Live by Night are set in Ybor City, but not in Tampa. Ybor was built in Brunswick, Georgia, 30 miles north of the Florida state line because filmmakers get a tax break there. Think the Florida Lottery casts its commercials here? It doesn't all the time. Recently, they've gone to New York and Georgia to cast them, although the commercials themselves are shot in Florida.
We don't understand it. We really don't.
Florida tax credits lure filmmakers here, say supporters, who then hire local extras and crew. In turn, it boosts tourism and fills hotel rooms and restaurants.
I can name the restaurants that I go to when I travel because I remember them specifically.
When a production comes into your town, every small business is utilized.
They know me by face now because I go there all the time, more so than my own places here. And that's because I'm there for work.
That's not going to Hollywood. That's going right here in our pockets.
Dolphin Tale created 11,000 jobs in Pinellas County in 2011. People flocked here to see Winter the Dolphin after the movie was shot here.
Take one.
Now, a state report takes a more unfavorable view of the tax credits, saying an investment creates a return of only 43 cents for every dollar spent.
The study didn't look at the economic benefits of tourism that movies bring, and supporters say that is the most important benefit.
What we have to do with all these economic development programs where we're giving away taxpayer money is see, are we getting a return on investment, and should we even be in that space?
Florida House Speaker Richard Corcoran is an adamant opponent of any tax incentive.
Make money. And do what with it?
Now, Florida's film industry is digging in for a fight.
Florida's a beautiful state. And the scenery is beautiful. There's so many great locations. It would help the economy. People would come here to visit. I don't know what the reasoning is.
I'm hoping that he will keep an open mind and really look at the data and not just say, oh, it's incentives, I disagree with it.
Otherwise, Netflix's Bloodline may be the industry's last lifeline.
Sometimes you know something's coming.
Season 3 is expected to be shot in the Keys.
Once Bloodline is gone, we go into a film nuclear winter, so to speak. Where's the hope?
I hate to admit this right now, but I have this pang of regret for not having just gone to LA in the first place.
Okay, well, Merissa, you and I both worked in Atlanta before coming here. You still have a lot of contacts in Georgia. What are you hearing from them?
Yeah, they're saying that it's not worth all the chaos, that all the film productions that come to Atlanta or Georgia, it's not worth all the chaos that comes with it. All the people, they say that they don't respect the people who are actually living there, so they don't really care much for the tax credit, whereas people from here are like, hey, it's free, people are coming here, they're being tourists, this is free commercials basically for the state of Florida.
And the government of Georgia cares about it very much. They're offering what, up to 30%?
Up to 30% of a tax break, which is huge. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, these productions are hiring local actors, they're hiring local crew members, local production techs, all these kinds of people that are coming in and they're spending money at these restaurants and hotels like you saw in the piece, but here in
and
Florida.
Georgia figures it's better to have 70% of something than 100% of nothing.
And Kelly Page actually told me that the film industry brought in $7 billion during the 2016 fiscal year to Georgia with those tax credits. $7 billion.
Merissa, thank you so much for your time. And folks, coming up, we're going to take a closer look at the president's to-do list and the odds of what will pass and what will fail.